Hey everybody, and welcome to the 27th episode of Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy podcast. On today's episode, my co-host Bub and I spend quite a bit of time discussing the college football national championship game that was played last week between Ohio State and Alabama. I think the game, ended up, the way most of the pundits, most of the people thought it might, but two great teams battling it out, a lot of great talent on that field. So we discussed that game quite a bit. We're also going to talk a little bit about Michigan recruiting and Michigan hiring a few new football coaches with a familiar face coming back into the mix. And we also touch on Michigan basketball and their hot start. So without further ado, guys, we're going to hop right in. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
I guess a week ago tonight we had the national title game. You had a red-hot, Ohio State team coming off just a dismantling of Clemson, a 49-28 win there where they put up 639 yards of offense. Coming in to play an Alabama team who won pretty handily against Notre Dame, 31-14, which I think everybody that watched that game felt like that game could have been 49-14 or 56-14. Alabama just totally dominated that game, but coming in, man, you had probably the two hottest teams in the nation. Obviously, Alabama was a pretty heavy favorite coming into the game, but yeah, man. So go ahead. Let's just hop into that. Give me your thoughts.
Starting off, I thought it was a really good first quarter. It seemed to be pretty balanced with Alabama and Ohio State running the ball, throwing the ball. Everything seemed to be 7.5, and I was like, well, some of the naysayers might be wrong. 7-7 at the end of the first quarter, and I was like, okay, this is a game. I didn't expect this. I really, I think just like everyone else, thought that Alabama will kind of run away with it. And I know you coming, right at the beginning of the game, you've got, your emotions are high and everyone's gonna be running on adrenaline. But I was impressed with the opening quarter, and then it was just a complete opposite, complete change from first quarter to second quarter. I mean, you go into first quarter 7-7, and at the end of the second quarter, it's 35-17.
Right.
And it's just a huge swing there. And I think, I know at the end of that game, with the final, I really think it could have been just like it was with the Notre Dame game. I think that the score just could have been a lot worse than what it was. Fields had a decent day. I mean, he threw for 194 and a touchdown. He ran the ball fairly well, 6 carries for 60-some yards. But overall, I mean, it's tough when you're dealing with Alabama. They are in a league that nobody else can touch right now.
Absolutely, man. They're a complete monster this year. And just going back to the start of the game, Ohio State got the kickoff. They went a quick 3-and-out, so Alabama's D stepped up. But on the first play, Trey Sermon got driven to the ground really hard. He came up, he stayed in another play. He kind of went out for a little screen pass on that next play, but if you watch it back, he's holding his collarbone like, man, something's wrong. And then he came out, and didn't return in the game. And I think that's huge right there based on how well he had been playing the previous 2 or 3 weeks. He clearly set himself apart as the number one running back on that team. Master Teague's a really good, solid back in his own right, but what Sermon had been doing those last few games, he was running wild. So to kind of get him taken out early, I think that really hurt. And, Alabama, like I said, they held him to 3-and-out. Alabama went down and had a nice drive. I think they had something like 12 plays, 5.5 minutes, ended in a Najee Harris touchdown. And you're like, okay, Alabama's, they're for real, man. But Ohio State, they came right back and they answered. A huge pass from Fields down to the tight end. I think his name's Ruckert. Made a nice one-handed catch. They had like a 9 or 10 play drive, and Teague ran in to tie the game at 7. You're like, okay, Bama's defense has some holes.
That's exactly what I thought. At the end, and going back to Sermon real quick, I was kind of surprised that he came out. I mean, I know obviously the kid was hurt, but it just didn't look like it was that big of a a hit.
Mm-hmm.
And when he hit the ground or anything, it didn't seem like the type of contact that would do, that would take someone out of the game like that. But I mean, I hope hope everything recovery goes well.
Yeah, I went back. I went back and watched that play a couple times, and just the way, I mean, that weight, man. A couple
Yeah, it's
guys
tough.
landed on top of him. You're talking, 600 pounds, more than 600 pounds landed on top of him, and just driving that shoulder into the ground. I tried to look up and see if what was wrong, if anything was broken. I never did get a definitive answer, but I did see, a reply from his mom saying, "Hey, he's good. The injury's not as bad as we thought. He's, I guess after the game, he stayed in Florida for a little bit to get checked out. Didn't come back with the team, but." Since the game has ended, he has declared for the draft. So,
Yeah, I saw that.
as have a lot of guys, which I'm hoping maybe that'll be what our next show talks about. So I don't want to get too deep into that. We can talk about, there's going to be over the next couple of weeks, there's going to be a lot more people declare. But maybe we can get into that, get into that later. Like you said, though, hopefully the kid's good. Man, what a stud. Those last couple games, my goodness, his draft.
He was a beast.
His draft stock skyrocketed. But like you said, man, it was kind of back and forth there. Bama scored again to go up 14-7. They got the ball back. Mac Jones fumbled. Ohio State got it, and they do what good teams do. They capitalized on that turnover, tied up at 14, and you think, oh man, Ohio State's never had.
That's right. And at that point, that's when I was like, yep, we really got a game on our hands, and I really thought it was gonna be neck and neck pretty much the whole game.
But I tell you, man, it's just this was the season where all the games I watched, Alabama just felt like they were that much better. It just felt like varsity versus JV, no matter who they were playing. And Ohio State's a fantastic team. If Ohio State plays anybody else that night, I think they win. I think they win the title. But Bama was
I agree with you.
I would have loved to have seen this year's Bama team versus last year's LSU team. Because just, man, those two offenses, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, that's a lot of draft stock and a lot of people, obviously, last year that came out and this year that will go high in the draft. But that would have been a heck of a thing to see right there. And I mean, really, I might be jumping ahead for a sec, but Devon Smith, dude, he completely showed why he won the Heisman this year. I mean, my Lord. 12 catches for 215 yards. That's 18 yards a catch.
Yeah, right. In the first half.
And 3 touchdowns. Yeah, and because he got hurt after that, and it was out for a bit. But I mean, he made it look effortless and so easy to do. It was fun watching him play.
Before the game, they asked Shaun Wade who you want to guard, and he said, "You know who I want to guard."
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And even one of the announcers said, "Careful what you wish for," because he abused him all night, and not just Smith. Wade looked really, really bad all night. There was a play late in the game. I can't remember the kid's name. Caught his first career touchdown pass. Bolden, I think maybe Slade Bolden. There late in the game to give. I think it was to give Bama like the 45-24 lead or whatever, and they kind of honed in on it. They showed a replay. They're like, look at Shaun Wade here. He's just kind of jogging. You got Bolden going in motion, and Wade's just kind of lollygagging over. Well, they hit Bolden out of the flat. Wade couldn't catch up. Bolden gets in for the touchdown. But Smith, it wasn't only Wade that Smith was abusing. They did what Ohio State does to Michigan every year, like we talked about. They get their best receiver, their best player on the linebackers, and there were times where Ohio State was playing 4 linebackers, man. And you get Smith lined up with Tough Borland. Borland's a fantastic player, great linebacker, maybe top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten, but you can't expect him to be able to guard Smith 15, 20, 30 yards down the field.
Right. It's tough for a linebacker, when you have to go up against these wide receivers, and especially the caliber of wide receiver that Alabama has. Because let's face it, you've got Devon Smith, but he's not the only one. You've got Waddle there, and he was hurt a little, came in, but he was hurt. But even their, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers are better than, most of the SEC and Big Ten and Pac-12 people. They just have fantastic athletes there, and it's tough to cover them guys. Doesn't matter who, how many people you have on the field.
Absolutely, man. And you talked about Waddle. It was cool to see him get to see him come back in and play, at least get a couple snaps. I think he ended up with 3 catches. You could see he was clearly hobbling. But
he hobbled over to the sideline on one of them, and I was like, yeah, he's done.
Just for him
coming back again.
Exactly, but just for to get him to come back to play, to be in that championship game, that was a cool thing to see. But man, like you said, their other receiver, Mechie, oh my goodness. Mechie looked fantastic.
Yeah, he did. I mean, all their wide receivers looked great. But again, next man up there when you're dealing with Alabama, you got 2 5-star wide receivers, Waddle and Smith. One goes out, next guy up, take your pick. Because they're going to key in on Devonta Smith. So that's really going to leave your 2 and 3 wide receivers probably open more than anybody else.
Absolutely. And
because they're going to be going against the lower corners. So they probably are going to be able to get that separation better than the other guy.
Absolutely. And for a team like the Buckeyes, like I said, at times they were playing 3 and 4 linebackers. When you have a team with that much speed, man, that's a gamble. You're trying to stop Najee. I get that, but you can't expect those linebackers to guard these wide receivers because there's no weak link.
No, that's the whole thing with Alabama, especially this year. What it seemed, it was just they had people that they had that stud running back. There's 2, 3 wide receivers, and Mac Jones is a great quarterback, but you couldn't. It was like as soon as you bring in four linebackers to stop the run, man, they pass on him.
Right.
And then you take a guy out and you put 3 linebackers in there and extra corners, and they run on you. It's just it's darned if you do and darned if you don't in that situation. They were just, and I'm not taking anything away from Ohio State because they deserve to be in it, in my opinion. They should have been there, but it's tough. I don't care who you are to deal with Alabama, especially when they have this amount of talent and they're playing that well.
Yeah, this was just that juggernaut. Nobody was going to beat them this year. I think they could play everybody again that they played on their schedule, and I can see them going 26-0. I mean, they were just that good.
Oh yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Like we said, Ohio State tied up at 14, but after that, it was really all Alabama. I mean, they just took over, scoring 28 points in that second quarter. They went in to halftime. They're up 35-17 at half. Crazy stat. Devonta Smith had, like we said, the 12 catches, 215 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Well, he had 215 total yards, not counting his return yards. Ohio State had 191 total yards. So he had 24 more total yards than the Buckeyes did.
That's unfair.
And I heard a crazy stat, too, that up to halftime, out of the last 39 drives, Alabama had scored 30 touchdowns.
Wow.
I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Ohio State because, they're a great team. But how do you compete with that? I mean, you're talking about all kinds of different defenses that they play. Good, great, and somewhere in between. But those stats, I mean, when you can just drive down the field at will, it doesn't matter who they put in front of them. They could throw 13 people out there, and they'd still probably run over them.
Absolutely. And Smith, we talked about him not having any catches in the second half. He came out, started the third quarter. From what I read, he got his finger caught in a Buckeye player jersey. Ended up dislocating the finger, out the rest of the game. So he ended the game with those 12 catches, 215 yards, 3 touchdowns. But
yeah, I mean, which is just a terrible stat to have 12 catches, 215 yards, and 3 touchdowns in a half of a game.
Dude might have set. I mean, he might have put up 400 yards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have seen, what he could have really done had he played the whole game. Because again, you're talking 12 catches, 215 yards, and 3 touchdowns in half of a game. And I'm not saying he would have completely played the whole game and done what they did, but you're probably still you're going to get probably 18, I'd say, catches if you continue that way. 18 catches for at least 300 yards and probably a couple more scores.
Yeah, he's going to play at least a little while because Ohio State did cut it 38-24 at one point. That's a 2-score lead against a really good offense. You're going to leave these guys in. You're going to let them play, and Saban's not that guy who's going to okay, I'm going to get these guys out and give some other guys a shot. So he was going to be in there if he was healthy. But another stat, we talked about Smith in the first half. How about Mac Jones? What a first half he had. 25 for 30, 342, and 4 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. He 342 in the first half, and he ends with 464. So, obviously in the second half, all they did was just run the ball.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he had, 130 yards in the second half?
Yeah, right out.
I mean, if you think about this, let's just say Ohio State, comes back and they get it within 7, and this is a shootout game. I mean, you could legitimately think about Devonta Smith throwing up 20 catches and possibly 350 and 5-6 touchdowns, and Mac Jones having maybe even 600 passing yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns. That's
Absolutely.
insane. I mean, it's crazy to think what they did in the first half. But if it was a legitimate shootout to where they had to really push their offense, what they really could have done.
Right, and late in the game, Najee Harris scored his third touchdown. He had two rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. So he had three. Devontae had three, and the young kid, the Bolden kid, had the other touchdown for Alabama. But again, just total domination. Alabama wins 52-24. They put up 621 total yards against a suspect. That was the thing with Ohio State this year, man. It was that suspect defense, the defensive backfield. And it just showed this game because they held Harris 22 carries, 79 yards, so they held him pretty much in check. But man,
But the other guy had actually, I think he had 10 carries for 70, maybe something like
right.
that.
But when you
So
give
throw that in there, but
yeah, when you give up 36 for 45, 464 yards and five TDs
yeah,
to Mac Jones, man, they Alabama ran 83 plays. They averaged 7.5 yards per play. Were 2 for 2
yeah,
on fourth down, 6 for 11 on third down, and really just controlled the ball. They had the ball for over 37 minutes.
yeah.
Just a complete domination.
That was a big thing because I mean, once you got up, right, and once you got up, like you said, time of possession 37 minutes to 22 minutes roughly, and once you got up, that's all they had to do, especially in the second half. They had to lead. They didn't have to do anything other than kill the clock, and that's what they did.
Right,
That's, that's what they did.
Ohio State put up 341 yards against Alabama's defense. That's a lot of yards against the Bama defense. But man, it just
Oh yeah, I
it
agree.
seemed like a lot of it was late in the game. I know Fields had a couple big throws late in the game. He missed a couple big throws. Heck, he missed a touchdown in the end zone when they turned it over early in the fourth. But like you
Missed a
said,
couple. There's a few drops, big drops there too.
there were, man. Like you said, he had an okay game. He was 17 for 33, 194 yards, a touchdown, 6 carries, 67 yards. Teague filling in for Trey Sermon, 15 carries, 65 yards, two touchdowns. So, that's a pretty solid game against, Alabama's defensive line. Olave did his thing, 8 catches, 69 yards. But yeah, man, it was really looking back. And
Yeah.
we talked about how last week I'm like, man, I don't even know if I'll watch the game live. I'll probably DVR it. I watched when it was 14-14, and I stopped watching. I hit the DVR, I hit the record. I actually went in and watched a couple episodes of Narcos season 3. And it's something else. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, man, I don't want to sit here and just sit through this game. It's no new team I'm a fan of, so I'll get it to buzz through the commercials. So I went through and buzzed through it and kind of fast forward through and watched it, and I watched it again today, just to kind of get refreshed with it a little bit. But cool moment at the end of the game. Landon Dickerson got hurt in the Florida game, hurt his knee, shouldn't be in the game. It was I think it was like a minute left. He wants in. Saban puts him in, lets him take the last two snaps. I mean, this kid who's, he's the Remington Award winner 2020. He's going to be a great center in the NFL. He comes out, he's hugging all of his linemen, all of his offensive players. Man, it was just a neat thing to see. And for Saban to do that, again, Saban's very hard. He's very hard to like. The way he's always up in these kids' face, and
Right.
I get it. I get it. Different coaches coach differently. Obviously, what he does is successful, but he's not the kind of coach like I like. You know what I mean? It's I don't like that up in your face, just always in your assistant coaches' throats, whatever. But it was cool to see him kind of do that for this kid and let him get out there for to at least say he played in that national title game.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't agree with that style of coaching. Obviously, I've made my sentiments felt on Brian Kelly and the way he does, and it's kind of the same way. I don't like the way he does things. Not crazy about Saban, but you know what? how can you say anything against his coaching ability and what he puts out on the field?
Oh, greatest college coach of all time.
Oh yeah, I mean there's no doubt. But it's cool to see him put that kid in and let him get in there for the national championship game. I'm sure that's something that he'll remember for the rest of his life. It's a good thing for him to do.
Absolutely. Well, let's like I said, man, we that's the end of the football season for this year. Didn't go as well as we wanted. Just a crazy season all around. But already ready for next year. I don't want to wish that time away, obviously, but anxious to see what goes on. Next year we got a pretty decent recruiting class coming in. Obviously, some guys entering the transfer portal. Some guys, opting out for the draft. Things like that. We had the bad news today with Zach Charbonnet opting out, which we kind of had a feeling that was coming. Not
Yeah,
opting
we
out. I'm
did.
sorry, entering the portal. Yeah,
Right.
with the season he had, just embarrassing. I don't blame the kid. I mean,
Oh no, no.
as a freshman, he came in and looked fantastic. Set the record for touchdowns as a freshman. Had 726 yards on 149 carries, 11 touchdowns. He turned around this year. He comes in, has 19 carries, 124 yards, one touchdown. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know. I don't understand the rotation that we went with the running backs.
Yeah,
I
I
get
don't
that.
either.
I get that
You,
Haskins probably set himself a little bit apart, but what was it him setting himself apart, or was it Charbonnet not getting the carries to show what he could do?
I personally think it was the unbalance of carries. Like you said, the season that Charbonnet had last year, and then you come in this year, like we've said multiple times, the first snap he takes, against the Minnesota team, which obviously was a crappy Minnesota team, but it's 70 yards up the gut for a touchdown, and I'm like, heck yes, feed this kid, and next to nothing for the rest of the season.
59 yards the rest of the year.
Yeah. So I hate 70 in one run and 59 the rest of the year. I hate to see the kid enter the portal, obviously, because he's super talented. I hate to see him go, but I get it. A lot of these kids are, if I'm not going to be used, especially with kids with that much talent, they want to be on the field. And if they're not going to get it, they're going to go somewhere else to where they're going to get on the field.
Now, obviously,
I understand that, but then again, I hate to see that because you work for it. Maybe Haskins outplayed him in practice and had a better attitude, and maybe there's more behind the scenes of what we see on the field. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not a coach, but I would have liked to have seen what the kid could have done because I think he really, really could have had a great career there.
right, and just because somebody enters the portal doesn't mean they're leaving for sure, but it's a pretty good indication.
Yeah.
With Michigan just hiring, great hire. They finally brought Mike Hart home. Hart's going to be the running back coach. Maybe there's a chance.
I'm stoked about that.
Maybe there's a chance Hart gets to talk to Zach and says, "Hey, man, we want you on this team," and maybe he can persuade him, change his mind. I think that's highly unlikely. The only good thing is with Haskins still being there, with Corum being in the
you've got Haskins, Corum, plus you've got Donovan coming in.
Yeah, you got Edwards coming in. You got Dunlap.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Maybe that's again, maybe that's kind of leads you. You take Haskins and Corum for the next year or two, leading up to Edwards and the people who do come in, but hopefully they can get something going there. But with that being said, I'm super happy about them bringing Mikey back. I mean, you're talking about the all-time career rushing leader there, and nothing but great things to say with what he's done at Eastern and Western when he was there, and Syracuse for a short time, and then what he's done at Indiana. I mean, Indiana obviously is not a running back school per se. They've had their fair share of decent running backs, but they're not a churn out these 3, 4, and 5 star kids into the NFL. But he did a great job in the past few years with what he did at Indiana.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy to see him come back. It's not only what he brings, but just it's a feel good story for him. Coming back up there and on the recruiting trail. I think it'll help a lot.
Heck yeah, man! He brings that cockiness, that swagger. He understands the rivalry. Although he never beat the Buckeyes, he played on some really good teams back then with Henne and Braylon and those guys. But he was fun, super fun to watch. It's good to finally bring him home. Like you said, man, he's the all-time leading rusher at Michigan. Ran for over 5,000 yards. The man knows the game. He's a small kid. He's 5 foot. I think he's listed as 5'9". I don't know if he was even 5'9".
Yeah, I mean, he was super underrated when he came out of high school. He wasn't heavily recruited at all.
Absolutely, man. He's a smart kid. Had a pretty nice, pretty good IQ, good football IQ. Obviously, went to the pros. Didn't have a great career in the pros. Got hurt. Ended up coming back. But like you said, he's kind of hopped in Eastern, Western. He coached at Syracuse for a bit. And then what he's done at Indiana, man.
It's great.
With Stevie Scott, Stevie Scott, I think, was like the 80th ranked running back coming out at the 2018 class. In 2 years under Hart, I mean, Stevie Scott had 562 carries, 2,543 yards, which is 4.5 a carry. I'm sorry, 3 years under Hart. Scott did that. But, I mean, this is a guy who was the 80th running back in that recruiting class, ended up with, 2,500 yards at Indiana, a team that's not known for, stellar offensive line play or anything like that. So I like the fact that Hart values the ball. I don't know if you remember in his career, he only lost 3 fumbles his entire career. And 2 of those
I did not know that.
2 of those came in the Capital One Bowl against Florida in 2008. He lost 2 in that game. Like, what the heck? Like, he never fumbled. Yeah. How crazy is that? 3 times in his career. Lost
And
3
2 in
fumbles.
one game.
Yeah. But I like that hire. And then
I do too.
And then we talked about with Don Brown leaving, where are we going to turn? They kind of, Derek Mason was out there. His name was floated around. But, with the uncertainty of, is Harbaugh going to be the coach? Mason went elsewhere. I think he went to Auburn or something like that. So
yeah, that I think the delay in Harbaugh signing, or extension, really is what kind of set that up. Because I would have loved to have had Mason. I think
for sure,
especially he's a head coach. He's a defensive guy. I think he could have done a good job. But them saying, well, we don't know, where Harbaugh's going or what he's going to do. That delay in his extension, I think, kind of shot getting Derek Mason up there. I'm still.
Could be a blessing, man. They get the young 33-year-old Mike McDonald, who spent the last 7 years in Baltimore. Obviously, he's playing for Jim's brother John there in Baltimore, so they're going to have discussions about the kid. Baltimore's defense is always tremendous. I mean, even against Buffalo this past weekend, they gave up 10 points. There was a pick 6, but the defense gave up 10 points.
Right.
So, well, and obviously he's not the defensive coordinator there. He's been the linebackers coach, the DB coach.
Yeah. I'm still iffy about this. I mean, obviously he's you've got Harbaugh up in Ann Arbor, you've got Harbaugh in Baltimore. I'm sure they've talked about it. I'm sure like you said, that they've talked and been in contact when it comes to that. But I'm still unsure, and until he can show me something on the field, I'm gonna be a naysayer, only because he's a linebackers coach. And again, you look at Baltimore. Baltimore has some probably top 3-5 defense in the NFL for quite some time. Especially the past few years. They always have good linebackers, which is a plus to McDonald. But they always have just a good, solid defense. I like that he's young. He could be there for a while if he wanted to be, probably, if they can, if they pay him decent. My only thing is he's not a play call. He coaches the linebackers. He hasn't had that, hey, this is, we want to call where they're running dime or nickel or whatever, or cover 2, or what blitz to run, or it's an unknown, because he doesn't have that play calling in his past already. Like I would have liked them to have hired someone who had maybe already been a defensive coordinator. That would have been ideal. And oh crap, who was it? Muschamp. They talked about him before even coming in. I was like, that would be a fantastic hire, because he hasn't had great luck as a head coach, but he is a heck of a defensive guy.
Yeah, I would have been all for bringing somebody like Mason or Muschamp in. Let them stay for a year or two. Let them, kind of groom McDonald and see what he does. And then if they go to take another head coaching job or whatever, then McDonald could possibly step up. But again, man, being in the Ravens system, being under Don Martindale there, Martindale's got a lot of experience. Being able to learn from him in Baltimore.
And he can always pick, he can always call and pick their brain and get information, get what help he needs from them. Because I'm sure you're going to have that relationship for quite some time.
I've heard and read from, about the guy, everybody loves his work ethic. Everybody says he has a huge, just a high IQ. He was a super smart kid in college. I know that. I think he was like a finance major and had like a sports management, degree as well. So the dude's super smart, has that high IQ. Let's see how it translates. I mean, it can't be worse than Brown.
No, and I hate to even say that, because what Brown did, at Boston College, and for the first few years there, was nothing short of great.
Absolutely.
But and we've harped on this, over the past few years. It's just continuously gotten worse. And whether that's personnel or just him not changing his style and using the personnel that he has. I don't know. But hopefully, McDonald can come in there and shed some light on a few things. Maybe he brings something from the NFL that'll help with that.
Right. I think my biggest concern now is we need a defensive backs coach, man. Somebody's got to come in here. Somebody's got to coach these guys because, I'm still nervous with, Charbonnet entering the portal now. I'm like, man, is Dax Hill next? I hope he's not. But we got to have somebody in there to coach these guys.
We need to get a hold of Greg, don't we? If they said tomorrow that he was coming back, I don't think I'd watch football for the rest. I don't think I'm going to root for Tulane or something.
Dude, he was.
Oh my Lord, that was horrible.
It was just bad. Nice guy, met him up there, at one of the spring games. Nice dude, but my Lord, not a fit at all.
No, sir.
So we'll see. Like I said, hopefully, everybody has to start somewhere. And with it would hurt me more if this kid was coming out of a college somewhere where he had been a linebackers coach or a defensive backs coach or whatever. But him coming out of Baltimore for 7 years, the kid's 33, so he's been coaching in Baltimore since he was 26 years old. Like, that's got to say something for him. Like they said, the work ethic, that's the thing. I want to get in there, whip these kids into shape, show them what to do, put them in positions to succeed.
Please do.
And I don't know who's going to come in as far as that, cornerback, safety coach, but we got, the 5-star cornerback, Will Johnson's making a decision here pretty soon, and we don't have anybody, like, who's my coach going to be? I don't know. I mean, does that hurt us?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it can't help because you've got short of the people who are already up there, which probably would have been Don Brown that was talking to him to begin with. Now you have no coach and no one really to get that, that in between talk. So it's like, why would I want to go there when I don't even know who my coach is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, because are they keeping Zordich? I mean, has Zordich already been let go?
I don't think he has yet, but I don't think it's been. I don't know if maybe they're switching his position, position coach or what. But I haven't seen that yet, so I really don't know.
I know the last I had heard that they said he wasn't expected to return. So man, if he's the guy that's recruiting, Damani, what? I'm like, man.
Yeah, so now you've lost him and Brown.
Absolutely, and with Damani, Ohio State's high on his list, USC's high on his list. Obviously, if we miss out, I hope he goes and stays out west, goes to USC. But man, this is a big kid. This is a game changer. This is somebody that you really, really need to hone in on and get him to Ann Arbor. I mean, we got to have that. The DBs, the safeties, it's a position of need and has been for quite a while.
Yeah, and the only thing I think it's whoever they do decide to get in there, the big thing that they could tell him is, you know what, if you go to USC or Ohio State or Alabama or where it's like you might sit, a year or two before you're able to get up on that depth chart. We need you now. Like, we need you last year.
It's sad that you have to sell that, but
it is. But like legit, some people, some of those kids, man, they don't want, especially when they think they are that good, they don't want to hear the news of, hey, yeah, come here. You might have to sit a year or two, but then you'll be in there all the time. They want to hear, man, you're good. You're going to come in and you can start. Like, you could legit come in as a freshman and maybe be a lockdown corner, and we need that right now.
Sure.
So maybe that is a selling point, a crappy selling point, but it is a selling point, and maybe that's what gets him there. I don't know.
That's why this transfer portal is so big. These kids that, like you said, their butts have always been kissed for since the time they were in Pop Warner football or whatever, and you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. So yeah, I'm sure they're working hard, but they're always hearing this, and then they get to that next level, and it's like, crap. I was the best, and these guys that I'm now competing with, well, when they came up, they were the best. Now I gotta compete against them. Do I want to put in that extra work to pass them up, or do I want to go to a different program we need you now? Maybe I might not develop to a point of being a first, second, third round draft pick, but I might get to play all 4 years. I mean, you kind of gotta, you gotta gauge what's important to you.
Right, and maybe maybe they do say, "Hey, I can come in and start for at least 3 years and get all that experience and have that coach teach me, what he knows, and maybe I will be a high draft pick with a little bit of work ethic and being the experience that I can get from playing as opposed to just being in practice and coming in, maybe the last few minutes of each game."
Absolutely, should be a interesting next couple of weeks to see who else comes on board. Before we step away from the football scene, we'll switch gears to the pro game, and I gotta give a shout out to Chad Henne, man. How about Henne coming in this weekend? I hated it was against the Browns. I mean, I'm not a Browns fan per se, but seeing Henne come in at 35 years old, dude. Come on, man.
I loved it.
The interception he threw was absolutely ridiculous. He just chucked it. I mean, I don't know what he was doing.
He legit, I'm pretty sure he may have been colorblind for that play and actually saw, hey, there's a wide open guy in the end zone. Oh, wait, that's not our guy. But, yeah, I was torn on a few different things. My thing is, I was really rooting for the Browns, obviously, because for the whole game, just because what they have been through in the past 2-3 decades. I mean,
sure.
It's atrocious
sure.
to see what has been up there, and I hate that for all their fan base because that fan base reminds me of the Bills fan base, man. When you're a fan, you're a fan, and you stay a fan, and through thick and thin, you're there, and of course, growing up where we did in Ohio, there's a lot of Browns fans. It seems like you're either Browns or Bengals, one of the two. With a few idiot Steelers fans, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, that's.
I was rooting for him, and then when Henne came in, I was like, oh, come on!
I know, right?
I was like, I can't root against Henne. I was like, so I'm just gonna sit back and take it as it comes. And man, Henne come in, he ain't started a game since 2014, other than the one he did the other day, and I'm just. Dude, he made some throws short of that horrible interception.
Mm-hmm.
But what's funny is right before, I think it may have been the play or either a play or two before that interception, he made a great pass.
Yeah, that was a bullet.
He stuck in the pocket too. He was getting ready to get hit, made that pass. I was like, man, he's looking great. And there goes the pick. And I was like, whoa, okay, I was wrong on that one. But then he rolls out, need to get that 13 yards, and I'll be darned if he didn't roll out and run for it. I hate to see it again, like it was against the Browns, but
I'm with you. I
got to be happy. I was happy for Henne, but I hated to see that it was against the Browns.
I'm with you. I was pulling for Cleveland to win, but I didn't want Henne to do anything to lose it for him. Like if the Browns won,
right.
I wanted him to.
I wanted the Browns to win the game, not Henne to lose the game.
Right, but when he took off for that big third down, dove and ends up a yard short. 4th and 1, they go for it.
I still thought that was a horrible spot. I thought he got it. I
did
think he got it. I did
too. But him making that pass to Hill,
dude,
that was nice, man.
When they lined up, I was like, yeah, they're just going to try to draw him offside.
Right,
that's fine. There's a minute something left. They got to play some defense. And he snapped that ball. And I was like, did he actually mean to snap the ball? Like, was that called, or did he forget what was going on here and he actually snapped it?
Right.
Because I couldn't believe that, and then he made that pass, and I was like, "Holy crap! That's some cojones right there." Like I didn't see that coming.
It was cool to see in 2021 to see Henne trending on Twitter with the hashtag #HennyThingsPossible or Henne Giving Sunday. Yeah. I was like, how cool is that? I mean, good for you.
And what's funny is I did see one. I don't know if you saw this or not, and I can't remember who it was from, who shared it, whatever. But there was a tweet that said, talking about like Michigan, it said, Henne and Brady, two Michigan quarterbacks out here. It may be like Troy, I can't remember what it said. Troy Brown at home with his 2 grandkids and Henne, 2 Michigan quarterbacks out here in the playoffs. I can't remember how it was, but it was funny.
Yeah, it says something like Troy Smith at home with 2 grandkids.
Yes.
Meanwhile, 43-year-old Tom Brady and 35-year-old Chad Henne out here leading their team to the games.
I liked it, but other than that, I got nothing else to stand on when it comes to LSU.
Right. One funny thing that I read after Henny threw that interception, Braylon, the tweet that Braylon sent out just had me
Yeah,
rolling,
that was
man.
great.
He said Chad
It
thought
was
it was.
funny.
He said Chad thought it was Michigan versus Michigan State 2004. Love you, Chad, but I'm home.
Yeah, it is funny, but it was great to see him, be able to come in and do that and to do what he did,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
really, I mean, he kept him in there. It was a tough ending, but he did what he needed to do.
That's right, man. I'm glad for Henny. It sucks for the Browns, but I tell you what, they're so close. Few more pieces and they're there, man. They got the running back, they got the quarterback, they got that a good receiving core when Beckham comes back if he can keep his head on straight. Man, you add him back to Landry and Peoples Jones kind of played pretty well at spots this year. So they're there.
I agree.
They're there. They need.
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, they almost won. Went to the AFC Championship game. What more NFC, AFC? I'm horrible when it comes to AFC and NFC in football. I can name you anything in baseball when it comes to the NL and AL, but I'm terrible at football. But almost to the championship game, and this, you're talking about a team who a few years ago, what was it, 4 years ago, they were 1-2 and something. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter. But I mean, for what the coaching staff's done, what the GM and the owners have done to bring in the pieces that they have, kudos to them because they've done a great job getting some people in there. And like you said, they are almost there. I mean, they are legit almost there to where they can make some super runs and just be a great football team.
Absolutely. So we'll touch. Obviously, we got the ageless wonder there with Brady going on to play Rodgers. Man, well, that's going to be a crazy matchup at Lambeau. It's supposed to be super cold, like 24 degrees. You got them, and you got the Chiefs and the Bills. So one of the two of those four teams are going to be playing for the championship, for the Super Bowl here in just a couple weeks. So we'll touch on that maybe a little bit next week as well, since the college game has come to an end. But let's stop with football here.
Real quick, since it'll probably be over before we do another one. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw out real quick because the championship games are this Sunday. I am rooting for the Bills. In retrospect of I'm giving Don his credit and credit where credit's due because the Bills are playing great. Josh Allen's playing out of his mind. I would love for his sake and all the Bills Mafia for them to go. And with that being said, obviously I'm a Brady fan. I will root for Tampa Bay because of Brady. I really think that what's going to set that game apart as to whether they win or lose is Tampa Bay's defense.
Absolutely.
If they show up and do well, they have every chance to win that game. If they do not play well, it's going to be ugly. Because we've seen that, in the couple games they played against the Saints prior to last night's game. I mean, they got destroyed. They just happened to play great, get a few turnovers, and they played a great game yesterday. So I think that's really what's going to be the difference maker and the deciding factor of whether or not the Buccaneers go to the Super Bowl.
For sure.
But I did see one thing, and it said if I can't remember exactly what said on it, but it was essentially like, the Patriots, the Bills have been behind the Patriots for the past 2 decades. So how crazy would it be if they had to go up against, they finally get past the Patriots, but then have to face Brady again. I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was like it's going to be crazy if that's what happens.
That would be fantastic, man. It's Brady. Brady's career is 32-3 against the Bills. So
yeah.
If that were the case, that would be.
And with that being said, if we had a Bills Buccaneers Super Bowl, I said this earlier to Chris, I honestly would not root for anybody. I would try not to because I would love to see Brady get his 7th ring, but for all the Bills fans and Don's sake, I would love to see the Bills win the Super Bowl. So I would just sit back and enjoy that game as the game came.
For me, talking about with the Bills and the Chiefs, I'm gonna be pulling for the Bills for sure if Mahomes plays. There's nothing against Mahomes. I like Mahomes. If he's cleared, if he's cleared to play, I'll be pulling for them for sure. If Kansas City or if Mahomes isn't cleared, I might be rooting for Kansas City just for Henny's sake, man.
Yeah. No.
Which would suck because, Henny, if they did win, he would get him there, but then Mahomes would come back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
it
wouldn't be Henny.
2 weeks to heal.
It wouldn't be Henny playing in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to be pulling for the Bills, but if Henny's playing, it's going to be like a little, back and forth. Obviously, as Brady's my favorite player of all time, so I'm going to be, rooting for Tampa Bay regardless. But man, Rodgers is having such a great year.
He is.
I don't like that guy. I've never liked that guy. I just can't remember.
I honestly think it's going to be a defensive. It's going to be determined by the defense. If the Buccaneers defense can stop Rodgers, that's it. But because Green Bay, even their defense, they have their hit or miss. You never know when it comes to them.
Well, yeah. Tampa Bay beat him earlier in the year, 38-10.
Right. Exactly. So it's going to be whoever's defense plays better. That's who's going to win the game because both offenses can score pretty prolifically. So I don't think it's an issue there. It's whoever's defense steps up.
And I think it's more so the defensive line of Tampa Bay because, man, they did not get any pressure on Breeze yesterday. And for the first 3 quarters, he made all the right reads. He was doing everything he needed to do. And even on the couple interceptions that he threw, the first one I thought that Murphy Bunting, I thought that was a hold. I thought that should have been offensive or defensive holding, maybe even pass interference. But then Breeze
it was
that throw late. But you gotta get pressure.
Well,
you gotta get pressure.
Yeah, I agree. And that one call was iffy, but he still underthrew it.
He did.
Holding or not, he underthrew it. And I'm not saying it was the correct call or not. But again, with talking about the interceptions, that ball was underthrown.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other ball, I can't remember the one. One of them was tipped, and that you can't really put that on Breeze.
Exactly.
That should have been caught. But still, it's just a tough thing because.
Hats off to Drew Brees. Hats off.
Yeah, I hate to see him go out like that.
He's never.
If that's the case.
Yeah, I think he's done. Based on the way he looked after the game, based on the way he talked.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw the video of Brady coming out after the game and hugging him and talking to his kids.
Yeah. He threw a touchdown pass to Breeze's son. He's like, man, we could have used you tonight.
Right. But with my big thing, with Breeze, I think he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks ever. Obviously, he has all the numbers. I always go back to the fact that he played so many games indoors. It's the same with Peyton Manning. They didn't play against the elements for more than 50% of their career. Whereas, Brady and even Rodgers, I have to give Rodgers credit on this, man. He's great. I mean, he's
half his games are,
at Lambeau,
freezing cold.
He's top 5 quarterbacks of all time. Rodgers is, but with Breeze, man, having when I got the chance to meet him and Charles Woodson at that show last year, and Christian McCaffrey, they were all just tremendous people. But Breeze, there was something special about Breeze. He's a super nice guy.
He just seems like a very nice and very humble.
Absolutely.
Humble guy.
I mean, a small guy. He's maybe 5'11". Just a super respectful guy. And it was cool to see him. I hated that he got hurt this year, but I think with the injuries this year and last year, I think it's to a point of, does he want to go through that again? His kids are getting older. He probably wants to be around for them. I think he hangs it up.
I do too. I really think he does.
Based on his facial expressions, at the end of the game yesterday.
You could see it. Yeah, you could see it. Does he want to stay? Does he not? His kids are getting older. Probably wants to spend some time with them. So, obviously it's up to him, and you respect the decision that he makes. But I agree with you. Probably top 10 for sure. I mean, especially in records, but just in general. I was having a hard time, obviously, rooting against him yesterday, just because I was rooting for Brady. Chris was mad at me because she was rooting for Breeze. For some reason, she'd say for some reason, but she does. She likes Drew Brees.
Sure.
And with good respect, he's a great quarterback. I wanted Brady to get it, but that is what it is.
Well, man, let's hop on over and talk a little Michigan basketball for a couple minutes. And starting, last Tuesday, man, 10-2 Wisconsin comes into play at 10-0 Michigan on Tuesday night. And, we thought this is going to be a great matchup. Michigan's, again, they're 10-0 at the time. This is going to be tough. Wisconsin's a really good team. And out of the gate, Michigan completely dominated the game. Ended up winning 77-54. Held Wisconsin to 31% shooting, 9 for 28 from threes. Michigan ended up shooting 52% from the field, 9 for 16 from three land. They had 13 assists. The big stat of that game, man, Michigan did not turn the ball over. 13 assists to 8 turnovers. They came to play on the defensive end. They had 9 blocks for the game. Just
like 6 steals too, I think, to add to that.
Yeah, man. I mean, they played outrageous. That's the best game I've seen them play all year.
Yes.
Demetric Trice for Wisconsin ended up with 20 points. Micah Potter, 12.6 boards. But other than those two guys, I mean, Michigan just held them down. I think they went on a 43-6 run at one point.
It was 40-3 or 43-6. It was somewhere around in there. I mean, it was just stifling cover. I mean, they couldn't have played better defense, in my opinion. It was just fantastic.
You know, we always talk about Shawnee Brown, man. There were 2 plays that he just you're up huge, and he's out sprinting everybody, picking the ball off, going down, dunking. Like he's tremendous. He might be top 3 defenders in the country. I mean, he's maybe the best defender I've seen at Michigan in the last decade. Just long, he's fast.
I agree, completely.
Always about it. But as far as offensively, man, Livers had a good game, 13, 6, and 3. Dickinson was Dickinson, 12.6 boards. But Mike Smith had a great game, maybe the best game I've seen him play. 16 points, 2 boards, 6 assists. Franz continuing to dominate the glass, continuing to play just tremendous defense. You know, his defense is kind of shaky at times, but when he's good, he is excellent, man. He's been excellent the last 5 or 6 games. He chipped in with 15 points, 10 boards. Just a total domination. Like I said, 77-54. Really could have been a lot more than that. Backups played the last 5-ish minutes. I was hoping
they were up at one point. It was 69-29.
Yeah, they were up 40.
40 points. And of course, I think it ended, 23, maybe, something like that?
Yeah.
But, again, like you said, they absolutely dominated every facet of that game. I mean, best game I've seen them play probably to date, at least, this year. And I saw a stat, it was like the first time in NCAA history that a team beats 3 straight ranked teams by 19 points or more.
How cool was that, right?
I mean, it was really cool to see. And another one I saw after the Wisconsin game, they held teams were shooting 52% against them, which was 7th, defensive wise, 7th in Division I, and first in the big conferences. So the defensive wise, man, you couldn't ask for them to be playing any better. So I was happy to see it. Love that run. Of course, that all changed Saturday, but we'll get into that.
Right. Sticking with the Wisconsin game for a while, Wisconsin's been that team that has just dominated us the past.
Oh, for sure.
The past 10 years, they've come in and they've just, I can't remember the exact record, but
I can't either. And they even showed it on the TV, but it was staggering. It was like 3 and even the past 5 years, maybe it was like 3-7. Or something like that.
It was I think it was even worse than that. It was something crazy.
Yeah, it was bad. It was very bad.
But so for them to come in and do this, man, they looked phenomenal. And then, like you said, we come in on Saturday. We're playing a Minnesota team that we beat pretty handily the week before, but a Minnesota team that's an excellent team at home. They were 10-0 at home. They're still ranked in the top 25. And Michigan was 11-0. Minnesota was 10-4. Worst game. Michigan come out of the gate slow. Obviously, before the game started, hey, Eli Brooks is in a walking boot. He's not playing. For that senior leadership, for his defense to not be in there, you're like, oh man, that hurts. But we'll just plug Shawnee in. He can start. He'll step up. But man, it just didn't matter. This is the most flat I've seen them come out, turning the ball over left and right. Dickinson looked completely lost. This was the first game in which I felt he was a true freshman, and you could really tell. Mike Smith was, I think, without Brooks there, Smith was trying to take on a little bit.
He tried to do too much.
Man, it was not good. He ended up with 10 assists on the day, Smith did, but I don't know how many turnovers, and he had 0 points.
Yeah, that was a killer. I mean, you know, like you said, Minnesota's a good team. What Michigan did to them a few weeks ago, they beat them very easily, and it's not taking anything away from Minnesota because they are a good team. I just think I was really I hated to see them lose, but I was kind of glad because I think it brought them back down to earth.
Sure.
Back down to, hey, we just crushed 3 ranked teams by almost 20 plus points. We're up on this high horse, cloud 9, whatever you want to say about it. But I'm glad to have lost because that brings them back down. I think they might get a little more focused and understand that, hey, we can be beat.
Absolutely.
Minnesota did a great job. I really think they took what happened in the first game and applied it to the second game. This is what happened. This is what we need to do. We shut Dickinson down. Obviously Eli Brooks being out that hurts, but you shut the big guy down and you make him you make him use everybody else. Smith with no points, that really hurt. That was a big difference. But again, like you said, a huge, what I think was probably the biggest difference, 19 turnovers. 19 turnovers to 7 Minnesota turnovers. And I didn't write it down, but I looked at the points off turnovers, and it was at least 15 plus.
Right.
So I mean, you give up even half of those turnovers with maybe a few less points off turnovers, and you might be back in that game. I mean, they didn't shoot great. They shot, 40% maybe?
Yeah, Michigan
close
shot
to 40%. Yeah, and 27% from threes, which are usually a little higher. But
even the free throws weren't falling. They only shot 50% from the free throw line. Dickinson looked lost, man. He did. He played that game. He looked lost, but he almost looked worn down. If you watch him go up and down the floor, there was no fire. There was no from anybody. Shaundi had some fire, but there were even points in that game where Shaundi was getting to was made to look stupid on some drives. But kudos to Minnesota. Kudos to Minnesota's defense. They played just phenomenal.
They played great. I mean, like I said, Michigan shot bad. They played a bad game, but I'm not taking anything away from Minnesota because not only are they a good team, but they came out and they played great.
They did.
They had a game plan. They stuck to the game plan, and they executed and played a great game.
And one big key for them on offense was Liam Robbins. He didn't play well last week, but he came out.
He was dropping threes, man.
Yeah, right.
2 or 3 at least. He had a 6-7 footer shooting threes out there.
Kid ends up with 22 points, 8 rebounds. Marcus Carr contributed 17 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists.
That right there, Carr, in my opinion, that was the game. That was the whole change. He played fantastic. He didn't throw up stupid shots, and even Dockich was talking about that. He's like, he's making good shots. He's not just driving in and throwing up stupid shots or doing stupid things. All these shots that he's making, they are good quality shots. He's not just throwing them up. If they're not there, he's passing it out to someone who could throw up a good shot. I really think that was not saying anything against, Robinson and all of them that were underneath, but I think the play of Carr is what really set the tone for that game and was really the big game changer because he controlled that whole game.
Yeah, I agree. Those two guys played well. You had Gabe Kolchar, chipping in like 10 points as well. But it was just ugly. Like you said, the turnovers. I had 20 turnovers written down. I might be off, but
I might be on. That's just one off. I just went by the stats that one of the apps told me.
When you have 16 assists and 20 turnovers, you're not going to win many games, man.
No. I don't care. I don't care if you have a 40 assists. If you still have 20 turnovers, it's going to be ugly.
Ugly all around. You never want to lose. I hate when people say, "Oh, well, I'm glad we lost." Then that's stupid. Like, I want to go undefeated, man. I want to win them all and back it all up. But you have.
To what I said, I don't want to lose, but for them to lose and say to realize we can be beat. We're not invincible. I think it really puts perspective into their brain that we can be beat. We need to try harder and we need to execute better.
For sure, and I wasn't meaning, I wasn't directing that at you.
Oh, I
I'm
know,
just
I know.
you say some people were, oh man, I'm glad we lost before the
No,
tournament. But no,
I'm
dude,
never glad we lose,
yeah,
but I am glad that it was going to, if they're going to lose, that it happened now
for sure.
when they can finally, when they can see, okay, this is what we need to work on, this is what we need to do, and way before Big Ten tournament time or NCAA tournament time or all that stuff. Get you a couple losses in there before all that happens, so that you can see what you need to work on and you can do that.
Absolutely, and like I said, man, Minnesota improved 11-4. They're 11-0 at home. They're ranked
They're
this
a
week.
good team.
This week they're ranked number 17 in the nation. So, like you said, learn from that. It's bound to happen. You're going to lose. They're going to lose 3 or 4 more games.
Dude,
it's going to happen. That is the best in college basketball. That league is
I can tell you right now, if someone goes through which obviously it's not going to happen now, but if someone would have went through the Big Ten completely undefeated, I would have laid money on them to win the tournament. No doubt in my mind, because that conference is good enough. I mean, they've got still, it's either 5 or 6 teams in the top 25. I mean, you're not going to be able to play that, and you play each team twice, so you're not going to be able to win against 10, 12 top-ranked teams. You're going to lose a game. You're going to have an off night. It's going to happen.
For sure. Good thing is, they play again tomorrow. They come back to Chrysler. They get Maryland at home. So hopefully, get things back on track there. They got a couple games against non-ranked opponents. They got Maryland, Purdue, Indiana, and Northwestern coming up. And then it starts a slate of a couple really difficult games, man. You got to play Michigan State on February 6th. You got to play Illinois on the 11th. Then you got to play Wisconsin again on the 14th. So
I'll tell you, even before that, I mean, Maryland is no slouch.
Absolutely not.
I mean, that's a tough game. And Purdue just beat who was Illinois, or I think they beat Illinois, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's a tough conference. It's an absolutely brutal conference.
And Maryland is old. Obviously they're not right now, but they're pretty much always in a top tier when it comes to basketball. They're a big basketball school. They always have a good ranking. It may not be top 25, but they're not far from it. And then Purdue usually, for the past 5-10 years, they've had a pretty decent basketball team. So even the non-ranked teams are still, man, they're tough games.
Yeah, and like you said, it's going to happen. Nobody was going to go through that.
No, you can't go through that gauntlet unscathed. There's no way.
Absolutely not. And like you said, we stayed at number 7, which I think is about right. Wisconsin.
Yeah, I agree.
Wisconsin's coming in at 10. Ohio State's playing out of their minds right now, man. They just beat Illinois. They're up to number 15 in the country. Minnesota at 17. I think Illinois is the last team in the Big Ten at number 22, and they're 9-5. Rutgers is a good team. Michigan State is Michigan State. They're always going to be tough. Iowa's sitting there at number 4. It's nice to look down through the rankings and see no North Carolina and no Duke. When's the last time you remember, Duke sitting at 5-3?
I don't remember the last time neither of those teams were ranked. To be
fantastic. Honest. Duke's sitting at 5-3. North Carolina's at 8-5. It's fantastic to see.
It is, and even throw it one more. I don't know if they're still ranked or if they're ranked or not, but look at Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky's playing pretty bad. They're not ranked.
Oh, they're horrible season there.
They were playing Auburn the other day. I was watching a little bit of that, and it was awful. I think Auburn was like 2 for their first 18 from the field. Kentucky had a little bit of a lead. I assumed that they were going to win. I turned back over. Kentucky gets beat by 7. I'm like, what the heck is going on this year, man?
It is. It's crazy. It really is crazy. But when you see those teams like Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky, when you're so used to them just constantly being in the top 5, top 10, just year after year, it's nice to see some of these other teams, them have an off year or two, and some of these other teams be able to come in and really have good seasons and get those rankings.
Kentucky is sitting at 4-8 right now.
Is that what they are, 4-8? Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure, I bet there's people calling for Calipari's head.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and for one season, and I guarantee you they're calling for his head. I have no doubt.
I'm not a Calipari guy. I think he's shady. He was shady at UMass.
Absolutely.
He's a shady guy, but
yeah,
man, That guy he's one of those Nick Saban-esque, coaches.
Yep.
His record at Kentucky is 334 and 84.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, fantastic. You can't argue with that, but I agree. There's that shadiness, and I don't like it. And I work with a lot of people who are Kentucky fans. I'm not going to say I enjoy them not being ranked and having the season they are, but.
Oh, yeah. Bask in that. That's, when you have
it won't last long. Next year, they'll have a top 5 recruiting class, and they'll be number 5 next year.
Absolutely.
Win the freaking championship.
That's why you got to enjoy it while you can, man. But
because that's how it rolls when you're dealing with Calipari. You get one and done, and you're going to have another team come in here. The next Fab Five, and they'll win the tournament next year.
How dare you say there's a next Fab Five?
I'm just saying that's the way it goes. When you have a season as horrible as Kentucky is right now, with what they have, and it's just the way it's going to probably be.
That's hurtful, bro.
I know. That's just probably what'll happen.
There's only two. There's only two Fab Fives. There's one real Fab Five.
I agree. Yeah, there's only one.
And then the other.
Fab Four. There'll be a sophomore in there. One of the 4 freshmen that they probably have starting won't get drafted, and he'll stay. So there'll be 4 freshmen and a sophomore.
Understandable, man. It's you had the Fab Five in the '60s, the Beatles, right? But then you had the real Fab Five is Rose, Howard, Weber, King, and Jackson. There'll never be another 5 like that, man. But
I agree.
Let's end that there for this week, man. Let's football season being out of the way. We'll get back on here next week. Well, college football season being out of the way. We'll get back on here maybe next week and talk a little NFL football. Maybe go into some recruiting stuff. We'll talk about maybe the people who are declaring for the draft, guys who might be opting in, opting out, hopping on that transfer portal, deciding to declare. There was one big one today that we'll give a little teaser. Not a little teaser, but I'm sure Buckeye fans saw it. That sucks for us, but Chris Olave is coming back for another season in Columbus, which
it's big, but Fields isn't.
Fields isn't there, but man, when you got 2 receivers like Wilson and Olave, and I tell you what, obviously not being a Buckeye fan, Olave though, he's fantastic. Great story, man.
Especially for what he was recruited as. It's great for him.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit next week, but until next week, man, got Maryland tomorrow, so go Blue.
Yep, go Blue.
All right, guys, that was today's show. Again, we appreciate you listening. Next week, we're going to discuss the NFC and AFC championship games, and we'll know who's Super Bowl bound at that point. We're also going to continue talking about Michigan basketball. We're going to talk a little bit about the NCAA college football transfer portal, which players might not be declaring for the NFL draft. So again, guys, we just like every week, we appreciate you listening. Hope you guys continue to listen. Again, if you have any questions, you have any comments or recommendations for us, hit us up. Let us know. PM me, PM Bub, text me, text Bub, and let us know. Again, we're trying to grow this a little bit. I know it's moving kind of slowly, but hopefully you guys are enjoying what you're listening to. For those of you who listen every week, those of you who do tune in, we really appreciate it. We're having a lot of fun doing it. So we'll see you guys next week right here on Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy Podcast.